Welcome back everyone, hope you're doing well today. Today's video is going to recap both Road to the Show that we saw in the last week, as well as some miscellaneous news that they also dropped for us, which was also pretty important. If you didn't see last week's video, we went over the core gameplay improvements that they talked about, and a few of the legend drops in the previous week. So let's start it off with Road to the Show. The first thing to note this year is that instead of all the archetypes that they had last year, this year will just be 5 total archetypes, 5 for hitting and 5 for pitching. Last year there were a lot more archetypes, but the way that they did it this year is that no matter what archetype you have, you can max everything out to a 99 if you want. The archetype is going to determine how fast a certain rating is going to increase. So someone like a pure power kind of hitter will be able to go 99 everything including speed, but their power and things like that will increase faster than all of the other ratings. Last year you would have hard caps that you could never progress through. This year, since those are not available, you'll be able to do plenty of training to work on all of the aspects of your game. And this year, a lot of the training is going to be playable. There are actually 13 mini games that will boost your caps. Some of these mini games are a little bit long, but they increase your caps by a significant amount. So throughout the stream, we even saw when you were in your 60s for a rating cap, you could still get a +4 just by doing a training. So it's kind of different from a game like NBA 2K where you can boost your stats for about 5 games by doing some training, but then it goes away after that. I was really worried that these training sessions would be very cumbersome and boring, but it seems like you get a significant reward every time you do them, so it's going to be worth doing it every time, and they look pretty fun, so I think they're going to mesh with the game very well. On top of these minigames and playable training, you also get in-game missions that you can choose to be hard or easy, and they can gain you additional bonus gains. I really like this because one of my favorite parts of the old Road to the Show was that you used to have in-game missions that were a lot of fun. This year they're taking it to another level and they're adding choices so that you can actually choose how hard or easy you want it to be. On top of that, in between games, you can talk to other players and they can issue you a multi-game mission to increase your rating caps. So something like getting 6 hits in 3 games will increase your rating cap for your contact a little bit more than it would in just training. And finally, there are also boss battles, which you can take against the league's superstars or hot players for huge gains. These are going to be even more than the regular in-game missions, and they're going to be super useful to boost your ratings. Don't forget that you can't buy rating points with stubs or anything like that anymore. That's what it's been like for the last year or so. So the only way that you can progress your ratings is by doing certain things in your gameplay. That's why all of this training and playing these games with these bonuses are so impactful. I would like to see a difficulty multiplier, so if you were playing on Legend or something like that, you get additional bonuses for making good contact or power or anything like that. But it's not a big deal. I would like to see it, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be adding that into this year's game. And finally, for Road to the Show, they've also completely redone their perk system. So whereas before you had to use your showtime meter and you would get certain perks throughout the game depending on your rating for a particular stat, all the perks this year are based on personality. So the way that you answer questions and have conversations with people in the game can affect what your personality is, and then you build up perks in that branch of your personality. And the more and more you progress through this, the more slots you can unlock and the more perks you can use. The Showtime meter apparently still exists, but it only exists through the Lightning Rod personality. So it will actually be available through perks rather than perks taking out from the Showtime meter. Showtime wasn't something I used a ton, but for people that really enjoyed it, it still will be there in some capacity. There's also a player bedroom, which is kind of your home screen for when you're creating your player, but I'm not sure if that you ever come back to it after you make it into the big leagues. It is definitely a cool way to create your player, but it seems like we're not going to see it very many times throughout the year. They did mention, however, there are going to be some new settings like a team bus or a team plane, so it'll be interesting to see if they have cutscenes there, or if that will just be something completely new. My guess is that those will be some of the locations for the teammate conversations, and where we work on our personality and become bros with some of our teammates. I say bros because that's the word that they use to signify that you've created a long-standing relationship with a certain player, and if you go to another team, they become rivals, and this will affect the way that your personality builds and also some challenges that you can get throughout the year. But by adding all these things together, it does look like they've added a lot into the Road to the Show mode, and I'm very excited to play it this year even though I haven't played it for a very long time. And I know a lot of people who are offline players or don't look at a lot of the dev streams or anything like that, sometimes feel like the game is a cookie cutter repeat over and over from year to year. This time, it's definitely not the case. It's probably one of the biggest jumps I've ever seen from one year to the next in terms of Road to the Show. I'm very excited about it. I want to express that for people that are a little skeptical, because I do think they've put a lot of thought and a lot of balancing throughout this mode to make it fun for every moment that you're spending in it. So I'm excited for Road to the Show, but that's not all they talked about last week. So let's get into some of the other news that they dropped for us. So first of all, the 2 legend reveals that they did this week were Andrew Jones and Walter Johnson. Andrew Jones should be a great card in Diamond Dynasty, amazing in Battle Royale for sure. We'll see how well or how long he'll be a very good card in Ranked, but an amazing card that a lot of people wanted, and he's going to have amazing defense, so this year that's going to be very important. So back in the day, they said that they measured Walter Johnson's fastball to be in the mid-80s, but later on they actually measured it and it came out to be about 93. 93 in Ranked in Diamond Dynasty isn't really a big deal and can get hit pretty easily. So what they've actually said is that since 93 at the time of Walter Johnson was actually the greatest fastball that they've ever seen, they will do an era adjustment, which we haven't really seen before. So even though it was 93, they're going to give him a very good fastball rating. And he throws sidearm, so this could be a wicked nasty card for 19. Along with those 2 brand new legends, they've also talked about the pre-order diamonds. So if you didn't know, when you pre-order it, you get 1 free diamond this year. And that diamond is going to be sellable, which is a huge deal because sometimes you get locked into a card and it turns out that their swing isn't very good, or they don't fit your play style, or they're just not good for you, and then you're stuck with them. This year, let's say I pick Frank Thomas because he's on the White Sox. It turns out it's like 18 where his swing wasn't very good for rank. Then I can go ahead and sell him, maybe someone else will want him and I can pick up another card for free. On top of that, pitchers they've mentioned will be a slightly higher overall since you don't get to use them as often as position players. So when you see the pre-order diamonds, just be aware that the pitchers will have a higher overall, just to give a little bit of balance. And so the 4 pre-order diamonds that they revealed were Tom Seaver, Frank Thomas, Stan Musial, Roy Oswalt. And none of these cards are the immortal level cards or those high career arc cards. They're going to be low 80s, but they're going to be enough to start your team. And now the Seaver card is kind of interesting to me. I wanted to mention because Seaver was one of the immortals this year, and I can't imagine him not being an immortal or getting some kind of 99 card this year. The fact that we get a Tom Seaver card at the very beginning of the year definitely makes me think that they're not going to do exactly what they did with immortals, or maybe not even have immortals at all with the career arc program that they kind of had last year. Obviously, they are going to change up the way they do programs, but I'm interested to see if this is an indication that there won't be immortals at all. Maybe we'll just get 99 overall cards from a year that they were really, really good, rather than taking the best statistical year from each category. They did mention that 125 will be the cap, so contact and power can go to 125 just like it did last year, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be immortals. Again, the Seaver card doesn't mean that there's not going to be immortals. It just means maybe that you get it a different way, like you could with Ted Williams, where we got a free 87 Ted Williams this year, but he still had an immortal card later on in a completely different fashion. And speaking of the way we obtain cards, Moments is going to be the next week's stream. So GameStop Monday, the blog, the dev streams are all going to be about Moments. Moments is the brand new game mode. It's supposed to be how we do the programs for this year. It's very interesting to see that they call it a whole new game mode. And in one of the menus in one of the teaser trailers, they showed that it was in a separate menu from Diamond Dynasty. So it's not necessarily within Diamond Dynasty, although it said it's supposed to be connected to Diamond Dynasty and the way that we get programs. So I'm not sure if that'll change by the time the game starts, but it was interesting to see that maybe it's a little bit disconnected, which could be fun for a lot of offline players. It is listed in the dev stream to be connected to Diamond Dynasty, so I'm very excited to see what it's going to bring. They will also be discussing the way that Conquest is going to change and some quality of life improvements. That's what it says on the dev stream, along with multiple lineups, which is going to be amazing. I think even if they had the grinds from last year and they had just implemented multiple lineups, we would have had a very different experience this year and not so much of a grind fest, because you can play a game of ranked, grind for a little while, and then come back to ranked without having to shift your lineup, and it's going to be a lot easier to deal with. So I'm excited for Moments. There's also going to be March to October the week after, and I'm excited for that as well. But there's a couple more pieces of news that they gave us that were kind of intertwined. They showed it at the very same time. First of all, there are going to be some content creators that are in the game for 19 and playable. The Sony partners of the MLB community, if you type in their name when you're making a Road to the Show player, you can play as them in Road to the Show. Their player model will show up. All these guys you'll be able to play with this year, along with some of the guys from last year like TD Barrett and Gold Glove. So it's amazing to see that MLB is working with these content creators and they're going to actually be in the game. And the way that they released this information is that they actually showed all of these guys doing some crazy bat flips in the game. So a lot of the new bat flip animations and home run celebrations that were motion captured this year were done by Shelfie and Fuzzy. So it's going to be really cool to see what kind of cool stuff we can do with them this year. One thing to note is that they will be putting these animations in the market, so you will have to buy these animations. I don't know if you'll have to buy them for Road to the Show or just for Diamond Dynasty for your created player or something like that, but it'll be interesting to see how they work this out in the community market. I'm sure there's going to be some backlash. I don't really mind it. I think it's cool that aesthetic things are in the market rather than always having to buy stuff just to make your team better. But I think that's all I've got for you today. All the videos I talked about will be linked in the description. I would definitely recommend checking out the IGN video with Steve Merca and a few of the other guys because there's a lot of good information in there. I personally wasn't a big fan of the dev stream. I thought it was a little bit long and a little bit dry, so hopefully I got all the info out to you in this short video for you guys. And if you're new to the channel and want to see gameplay tips and news like this leading up to 19, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.